Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 465. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Are you ready to navigate love's blueprint and unlearn everything you thought you knew about love with relationship strategist, Bonika Wilson? Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Richards. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like us to know about you and your business?
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am a Midwest girl from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm the oldest of three girls. And I think what's important about kind of my family familial background is that my mom and dad were separated when I was in the 9th grade and divorced my freshman year of college, which kind of gave me a mindset about relationships and marriage, which kind of led to where I am now. So, as the oldest of three girls, my mom stayed home, was an at-home mom. And then in 9th grade, when she went through the separation, she went from working from not working at all to working 2 jobs. And I quickly became like a second parent in my home, if you will, taking care of my sisters, helping them with homework, and basically being a little mommy, if you will. So I lost a little bit of the childhood from that. But I think that's important because in 9th grade, I saw my mom going through a separation. The first Black professional I saw that I can remember was my mom's attorney, who was a Black woman. The first Black professional woman I saw was an attorney, who's my mom's attorney. We were going through her separation and subsequently her divorce. And I just remember her being such a strong advocate for our family. My mom and dad, neither one went to college. I'm the first to graduate from college in my family, so first to be college educated. And I think that's important because it lays a foundation for, me wanting to be an advocate in life by seeing someone who came into our life and was an advocate for us. As a strong Black, powerful woman, I knew that I wanted to probably either go into law or at least be an advocate. And so that kind of laid the strong foundation for the work that I do now.
And I understand you're an author.
I am an author. I am an author of Marriage Business, From Proposal to Prosperity, How to Build Your Dynasty the Fortune 500 Way.
Can you show us? You have the book?
I do have the book, and I don't have it on
okay. That's okay. We'll get it. Tell them how they could get the book.
Oh, you know what? I have it. Wait. I do have the book. Can you see the book? Can you see it?
Yeah.
It's a book.
No.
And it's a nice, clean design. You can't really even see the buildings in the background, but there's lots of buildings in the background. There's the rings, and it's really about building your dynasty. So my background, just so you know, Dr. Richards, I was a commercial banker, managed commercial banking teams for several years, for about 10 or 12 years. And then from there, I have a master's in organizational development, organizational psychology, started doing some strategic planning work, also went into like the DEI space and doing diversity strategies for organizations, for Fortune 500 companies. I started doing their strategic plan, infusing DEI work into their strategies. As someone who does strategic planning for a living and have worked with commercial clients all my life, pretty much all my commercial life, my career life, I realized that successful businesses had usually a successful business plan. They had a good strategy. And I realized, if we could apply a strategy in our relationships, we might be just as successful as some of these successful Fortune 500 companies. What's the difference? They have a strategy. And oftentimes we go in relationships with not very much of a strategy, just, thinking that good old love is going to lead us down the right path and not a real strategy. So the whole idea was to apply some of the things that I was coaching my clients, my commercial clients on, having a strategy, understanding core values, understanding alignment. What's the business mission, vision, and goals? And I thought, we could apply some of these core concepts in our relationships. There may be better, stronger alignments. If we share the same core values and goals and missions, and we're on the same page, we could have more of a harmonious relationship, if you will. And so the book is really all of the corporate experience I have kind of packed into application for your relationship. And I actually, Dr. Richard, start using it in my own relationship. I've been married now. This will be 24 years this year. And my husband and I started actually using these concepts over 5 years ago. And it's been game changer. It has changed our relationship. I often say I have a new husband, the same man, but a new husband. It's been that different in our relationship. It's been a game changer. So love the book. I'm excited about the book. It hit #1 bestseller on Amazon in December. So we're really excited about the testimonials we're hearing.
That's awesome. And so you actually parlayed into what I was going to say. So is it a blueprint for someone who would like to read the book? Is it a blueprint saying, this is what you should do before you get married? And is it a guide for someone who's saying, oops, I'm already married? And it is a guide to say, I can still pivot and have that amazing, successful marriage?
Fabulous question. I think it's both. I think what I would love to see is that people read the book and understand the concepts prior to marriage, right? Because you kind of come in with this new, untainted thoughts. You don't have that experiential learning, if you will, that, comes with, oh, I've tried that, been there, done it, it didn't work. So if you're kind of virgin, if you will, you have that pure foundation. You don't come in with those ideas that, oh, this won't work. I've tried this. So it'd be great if people could come in with it without the marriage already, but just come in with a relationship and they're ready to go into this new space of their life. But I'll tell you, after, like I said, we've been married 24 years this year, and we probably started implementing these concepts at 18 years in our marriage. And so I would say it's both, to answer your question. I would say that you could, for sure, newlyweds would love this book, would love the concepts and get a lot out of the book. But I would say that for folks who have been married 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years even, it is still a great way to come in and see some new concepts and take ownership of where you are. Actually, the experiential learning may be even beneficial because you can say, here's some things that we've learned about ourselves that we can apply as we think about what are our values, what is the mission, what is the legacy that we want to leave after we're gone for our children and our family and our community. And so I think some of that wisdom can actually help you navigate in a more meaningful way, quite frankly. Also, the last thing I'll say about that too is individuals can read this book because one of the main components of the book is a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I know you know that. And I think it is so important as an individual to know your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats before you decide on a relationship. Because quite frankly, if I don't know what I'm bringing to the table, it's very difficult for me to say, here are my requirements and to understand my value proposition in a relationship. So that SWOT analysis for individuals is also important to understand and know who you are and what you are requiring or requesting in a relationship from someone else. What can they provide?
Give us, without spilling all the secret sauce, give us a couple of tips I want you to give tips for someone who is not married yet, but seeking and desiring. And there are so many women who desire to be married.
Yeah. So for me, outside of that SWOT analysis for folks who are individuals and seeking to get married, understanding what your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats are, trying to close some of those gaps. So if I know these are my weaknesses, how do I close that? If I know here's some opportunities and here are some threats, if these things about me do not change because they have been an issue for me either in my career, in my family, in my life, I know these are threats. These are things that probably are not beneficial for me as an individual. They're not adding value. Knowing those things early on and even before a relationship are critical. The other thing is, I would say is important for individuals reading the book is there's a section that talks about your core values. And I think understanding your individual values are important so that as you seek someone and you think about relationships, you can identify someone who has equal or similar core values. Like for me, being an advocate is one of my core values. Having an impact is one of my core values. Those are two core values that my husband also shares. He wants to have impact. That is important, how we impact our family, how we impact our community. So for individuals reading the book, knowing that SWOT and understanding your core values, so you can also look for somebody who is equally aligned in your values, I think is so important and so critical.
So someone has been married, this is an example, just hypothetical, over 20, 30, 35 years, and you see the disconnect. They're almost in a state of like a roommate. How do you get the parties on board to, one, read the book, or one party read the book? I don't know if they both need to read the book. I think that would help. How would you get them on board as a relationship strategist?
Yeah. What's important, especially for someone who is not as willing as we would like them to be, is really understanding where their passion, talents, and gifts lie, uncovering that. So for me, if it were my spouse and I didn't feel he was on board with even reading the book, for me, I would be on a mission to understand what drives this person. Where is his value proposition? And so for me, I talk about in the book, Dr. Richards, being a helpmate or dad weight. So for me, being a helpmate, it is my goal to help him understand what is your legacy? What is the impact that you want to have that's bigger than just a career and going to work every day, or just being a great parent, if that's what what you enjoy. Outside of those core things, what else is important? And so for you as a helpmate, you're looking to see what is this person, what drives this person, what motivates this person, and utilize that as a framework for the book. So for me, if my husband's goal is to have this impact, this community impact, then I would say, this book is not about our relationship so much. It's about me helping to understand what your goals, gifts, and talents are, so that I can help you achieve that and have the greatest impact that you can in this world before you're gone, before you're no longer here, and how you can leave that dynasty for your children. So the goal is for the helpmate, not the dead weight, the helpmate, to understand I am trying to inspire something here, and not necessarily focus on the marriage or the relationship, but focus on where you see this individual being their best self and showing up as their best self. And let them know that this book is really about you helping them be their best self. Take the relationship off the table, because the truth of the matter is, if I don't show up as my best self, Dr. Richards, I can't help my husband be his best self. And I talk about the dead weight in the relationship. If there is a dead weight, it's like, if you're not a helpmate, if I'm not helping you, moving you along, uplifting you, inspiring you, and motivating, I'm dragging, I'm pulling you along. I'm trying to help you get there in your thoughts and your mindset. And that is tiring, if not more than that, right? And that's not why we're here in relationship with each other. I'm not here to drag you. I'm not here for you to be baggage for me. I'm here so that we can uplift and we can do things that are greater than and will outlive this relationship. And so the book is also focused on that legacy piece. It's focused on this relationship is great and wonderful, but it's bigger than this relationship. It's about having this greater impact. And I say impact a lot because that is one of my core values. For someone else, it may be different, but for me, that's a core value. So I talk about it a lot. But at the end of the day, this relationship is not just about having the relationship. It's about what happens after this relationship. It's about creating something bigger than even a legacy. It's a dynasty. And I talk about the difference between legacy and dynasty also in the book.
So speaking of legacy, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
So for me, I want to be remembered as an advocate. I've done some DEI work. I've, been in commercial banking for several years. What I realized, especially in the DEI work that I've done, I was a chief diversity and a chief equity and inclusion officer for Economic Development Authority. And I realized that if we want to close economic gaps and equity gaps in our cities and our states around our country, that we cannot solve problems when we see them, which is when they're in the community or asking for resources, right? Public aid, public assistance, whatever, support, whatever that support looks like, grants, loans, all of those things. We have to solve for problems before they get where they need support and help. We have to solve at the very beginning, at the foundation, and that's the mindset. So for me, I want to be remembered for creating mindset shifts. And I think mindset shifts start in the home, not in the community. Once you get in the community, you built this mindset. It's hard to change that. You have to start with healthy relationships. Healthy relationships create healthy parents. Healthy parents create healthy children. And so then I'm dealing with healthy mindsets, which are, how do I deal with money? How do I manage money? How do I manage decisions? Do I make analytical decisions? All of those are mindsets. And if we start in the home with helping people think about financial literacy, how we make decisions, all of those things, then we're better off to serve them later on in life.
And tell us the backstory. How did you and your husband meet?
Oh, great question. So we met after college. My sorority sister was dating his fraternity brother. And it's so funny. His fraternity brother met me first and says to him, I met your wife. That's what he said to my husband, who was not my husband at the time. And my husband's like, yeah, right. Sure, you met wife. He's like, no, I'm telling you, this is your equal. Like, this is your wife. So they introduced us, and the rest is history, Dr. Richards. So I actually was his wife, I guess. And needless to say, the fraternity brother and my sorority sister did not make it, but my husband and I did.
And give a shout out to your sorority and your husband's fraternity.
So I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and my husband is a Kappa man. So we both wear crimson and cream. So
that's awesome. That's
the crimson and cream team, dream team. That's what we are.
And so when you met your husband, did you know right away that he was your husband?
I did not. But I will tell you what I did realize very early on was that we had very much like-minded mindsets, like-minded goals. So we were equally aligned, at least in our values. The biggest thing that I realized was that he was a Christian. He was going to church, even at 23 years old, 22 years old, however, he was in his early 20s, going to church faithfully. He understood, listened to gospel music in the car, like all the things that I knew were kind of foundationally important to me. Was that I was like, if nothing else, I got to have a man who, has some Christian, it's Christian feel, is like faith-based. That was pretty important to me. And I saw that early on. And I thought for a 20-something-year-old, early 20-year-old man to be committed, this man was a treasurer of his church, Dr. Richards, like at 20-something years old. I was like, oh, that is really impressive. So that I liked. I did not know he was going to be my husband, but I did know that I was attracted to the fact that he was very equally aligned in his faith-based walk with Christ. So, and that was attractive to me.
Talk to the ladies in the audience that are saying it's not enough quality men out there. I can't find a husband. What advice would you give them?
I love this question because there's been this recent debate about people going in 50-50 and should women pay for the date or the man pay for the date? And I feel like oftentimes women, we create these checklists. And that's why I talk about the SWOT analysis. And we got these high expectations on our checklist that some of those things we don't even offer. We don't even have those things. And I say to my single women all the time is, first of all, evaluate yourself. Like, what are you offering? And really be clear on that. I think the other thing is you have to be willing to invest in a relationship and a partnership, more importantly. So you have to be willing to pour into the relationship. If I looked at my husband based on a checklist that I had, he probably would not have met many of the requirements at the time, minus the one about being faith-based. But, if I'm looking at how much you make and, what kind of car you drive and what, those things that are, really like just superficial and not really important at all to the character of someone's soul and who they are. I think if you are able to invest in someone for me, if I had thought those things, I would have ruled my husband out. And now, I always talk about this. My husband, I remember our first date. I said, we should go to this movie. They're playing, this movie is coming out and we should go see it. And he must have thought that meant that I was inviting him on a date. I was not. I was just making a suggestion. However, we get to the movie, Dr. Richards, and he's like, oh, so, he's looking like, the lady's 2 tickets, whatever the price is, $16 or whatever. And I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. Okay, sir, what are you doing? Well, you asked me on the date, so you should technically pay for the date. I literally was just dumbfounded. And we are in the middle of the glass window. People are behind us. It is just an awkward moment. And I thought, I'm never going on a date with this man ever again in my life, but I went on and paid for the date because I was like not going to be embarrassed. And I thought, okay, that's the last date for him. And I say all that to say now, this man pays for all the dates. I never pay for anything now. But had I not went on another date with him, gave him the benefit of the doubt to see like what I think he also was trying to figure, understand me. Like, are you going to be equal? Can you be a value partner? Are you equally yoked in that way? Do you have my back? I think for him, he was also trying to see some things. And I think, now it's like, well, if I had turned away from that moment and been closed-minded, I would have, not had my husband, and who, like I said, I never, ever pay for anything now. But if I had closed myself off to that, then I would have not been able to have the fruits of the relationship now. So I just would say to individual women, be willing to invest a bit in the beginning to understand if this is the right one for you. The truth of the matter is a partnership is that helpmate, and you are helping them along the line so that they can grow in their career. So they do have that confidence that they can go in and ask for more money or grow in their profession, go back to college, whatever those things are. Oftentimes a helpmate is the person who helps design that pathway for them so that they can win in life. And I realized that in my relationship with my husband, we were kids. We had no idea. He needed a lot of help making along the way. And so did I. And so I would say, don't be so closed-minded individual. Our single women, or single men, don't be so closed-minded in a checklist. Don't be so rigid to that. Make sure that you're willing to be a partner first.
Talk about writing the book. Did you self-publish? Tell us the backstory.
Yeah. So I started writing this book 10 years ago. So most of the book was probably written before I actually did get a publishing team and an editor on board. I used the firm, the Legacy Project, because their whole idea and their whole basis is about creating legacy projects, right? And so they take on works that are bigger than just books. They're about creating legacies, whatever that may be. So I used a group out of Atlanta called the Legacy Project. But the book I was literally, Dr. Richards, writing this book for 10 years. And I think it off and on, I would put concepts that I thought, oh, this would work in my corporate career. I would say, oh, this might work. Let me try this out. And I would write about it. And then I think there were times where there were fluxes in, and how relationships are. Sometimes you're happy. Sometimes you're like, eh. Whenever I felt like, in my relationship, I kind of put the pen down, like, I feel like I am a fraud right now. I don't know that I should be writing about marriage because, I'm definitely not a marriage expert. And, today, I don't even know, how happy I am with my husband. So I would literally put the pen down for months and just feeling like a fraud, quite frankly. But I think the point of that is that I can tell you, like, this stuff is tried and true. The practices in the book are things that we do consistently, and they work for us. We have family meetings. So it's not just our relationship. We bring our children into these conversations weekly. We have weekly family meetings. And so these things are tried and true. And so for 10 years, I was like working on this book. But when I got the Legacy Project on board, they kind of pushed it along and made sure that I've met a deadline. And I love the outcome. And I'm hearing such great testimonies now about the book.
Thank you for sharing that. Who's your ideal client?
My ideal client would be someone who is on a journey to leave the world better than they found it. And they realize that we are stronger together. I'm stronger, even if I'm an individual or I'm single today, that man is not meant to be alone, and that I'm stronger and more powerful with someone who is focused on helping me achieve my greatest gifts and talents and leaving the world with those gifts and talents. So that's my ideal person, is someone who is about impact, about leaving a legacy, about making the world greater by utilizing their gifts and talents to leave an imprint.
And how do you make impact daily?
For me, making impact daily is about, having a strategy, living, breathing, working the strategy daily, and having a team around me who are also guided by that strategy. So my strategy team is my husband and my children. We are all on board. Again, I mentioned we have family meetings weekly. We are on board with, how was this week for you? Tell me something great that happened. Tell me something that you wish you had done differently. And what's the goals for this week? What are we trying to accomplish? So we are all hands on deck in the Wilson household on what the mission is. And the mission doesn't often change. The tactics to getting there may change each week, but our kids even have conversations at our meeting. My 5-year-old is a part of my family meetings, and he's, I could have done this better this week, or I wasn't really nice to her. I wasn't kind to my friend, and so, well, what can you do differently about that? Tell me how you can navigate that differently next time something like that comes up. We are teaching them how to make decisions without emotion, how to be analytical, critical thinkers, even at our early age. So that's what I would say.
And let's talk about advice you wish you had followed.
Advice I wish I had followed. That's a good question. I think advice that I wish I would follow is kind of this advice that I'm given in the book, but that I didn't have. I think about my childhood, seeing my mom and dad communicate and not do it very well, Dr. Richards, and knowing that I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have a model, right, for successful communication and healthy, consistent bit practices in my home. So I had to create them. So I think for me, advice I would follow would be having a strategy, being faith-led, having a foundation, something that grounds you, something that's bigger than you and your spouse or you and your partner, but really understanding that your purpose in this world is bigger than just the day-to-day stuff that we see, and like, how can we really live our life in our purpose and what that is. So one, identifying your purpose and living your life in your purpose. I guess I would say that would be my advice. Identifying your purpose. There it is. Identifying your purpose and living your life fully in that purpose daily. That's what I would say.
I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not, and they have inspired you so much. Who is that person, and what are you saying to that person?
Oh, that is so good. It would be my grandmother. So I would say, my grandmother, I would say, thank you, Grandma. Thank you for instilling in me early on the values of hard work, perseverance, being faith-based, and being an entrepreneur. My grandmother was an entrepreneur. So I would say, thank you so much for letting me see you in that light. You always put Christ first. You always led your family with hard work, perseverance, and you always had a hustle. My grandmother was an entrepreneur. She sold Tupperware, Mary Kay. Like my grandmother, Avon, not Mary Kay, Avon. My grandmother always had a business, Dr. Richards. She was a hustler from the very first one I saw, had so many side businesses. My grandmother and always had money, either in the bra or she would be pulling money out everywhere. So what I learned from grandma is faith-based, perseverance, hard work, and always have you some money on the side, right? Always have you a side business, which became her main business because it made so much money. My grandmother was the first entrepreneur that I saw, woman entrepreneur that I saw in my family.
Talking about entrepreneurship, talk about that pivot that you had from commercial banking, DEI, corporate America to your own business.
Yeah. So I started my career in banking, quickly rose up. At 24, I became a vice president. At 28, I became a senior vice president in banking. I was, on this banking trajectory that, was very promising. But what I saw in commercial banking, remember, this was 20 plus years ago. In commercial banking, then there was no one on my team that looked like me. I was the youngest on my team. And for a while, I was the only woman, and finally we got one other woman, but I was, literally the only minority and the only woman and the youngest on my team. And I would be privy to some of the most interesting conversations you would ever imagine, because at that time, we did not have what they call now in banking centralized underwriting, which is like you put in an application, it goes to like, the dark era, into a computer, room, and somebody shoots out a response. Back then we had loan committees. So we sat around a boardroom as the bankers and we pulled out, our loan packages. So we look at P&Ls, we did the deal cash flow. We're looking looking at their competitive analysis. We reviewed the loans as a team and made the decision. And you can imagine some of the things I would hear about. We're not doing this kind of loan to this type of person and, all kinds of things. And God had me in that room to say, I'm privy to these conversations for a reason. That helped me understand that people needed to be more exposed to people who did not look like them so that they can make fair and equitable decisions. And which transitioned me a bit into making sure that I had those conversations with my commercial clients saying, what does your business look like? What does equity look like within your business? So I started as a banker, but then I started big picture conversation, helping my clients manage their organizations from a whole equitable standpoint and understanding that we're becoming a global, at that time, very much becoming a global market. And we have to understand inclusionary practices are beneficial to your business. So then I got a master's in organizational psychology and made a pivot to start consulting my commercial clients about thinking about the psychology of their organization and not only inclusionary practices, but how accounting needs to understand what sales is doing and marketing is critical to understanding the production of the company. All of those things have to work together, the psychology of organization. So that's kind of how I made the pivot from commercial banking into the strategic planning and even DEI spaces, because I was still having those consultative conversations with commercial clients, helping them understand the psychology of their organization and how they can grow their business. And so got a master's in that, started doing it full time, and thought, I actually started side business like grandma taught me. On the side, I would say, hey, I'm going to help you prepare for the commercial loan underwriting process. I'm going to help you pro bono understand what you need to do so that you can show up and present so that you can win the deal. And so started like just doing side consulting for free, actually, for pro bono, just so I could help people who were diverse show up well in those, and have a voice and advocate in that room, so that they could win the deal, because I felt like oftentimes they didn't win the deal, not because they were not worthy of winning the deal. It was because of other reasons. And so that's kind of started the transition into my own consulting firm.
That is awesome. Your top two mentors, who are they and what lessons do they teach you?
That's good. So I think the first one I would say was this lady named Maddie McLean. She was my first manager that was a minority Black woman like me. And Maddie would have side conversations and say, you can't do everything that everybody else does. She would pull me to the side and say, let me show you how to show up in your best light so that you can win, so that you can grow in your career, so that you can have a long runway in this banking arena. And you can't just say what you feel. And, I came from Cleveland. I'm from a very, very, how do I say this? Interesting neighborhood, not the best neighborhood. Let's just put it that way. And so I just came from a background where you kind of just said what you feel. And, there was no repercussions for saying what you feel. And Maddie would say, here in this world, you cannot just say what you feel that way you feel. She helped me understand filters were important. So Maddie was my first manager that looked like me, and she really helped me navigate the banking space in a professional manner. The other person that I would say has been a blessing to me here lately in life, her name is Sharon. And she has helped me understand, one, how you live in your purpose. She's a wife of an executive. She's a mother. She's very faith-filled. And she's just helped me really understand, like, coming into my own as a woman and being who you are, still married to someone who could be very high level, where you can feel like sometimes your light is dimmed if you don't understand what that role looks like. She's helped me understand, how I still can stay, hold my footing as a Christian woman and still have my own very, shining light, but also respect the boundaries of the relationship, if that makes sense.
What problem exists in the world today that you would like to solve?
I think for me, it would be engaging our youth in the political process, making sure that people understand to not take information on surface for what it's worth. You have to really do your own research. So for me, if I could fix some things or change some things, it would be definitely helping our youth understand how critical and important they are to our political process, and to the process of it is their responsibility really to do the work, to do the groundwork, to understand who they are, how they show up, and how they're valued in that political process.
If you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
I guess I would ask myself, Bonika, why do you do what you do? Like, where is that motivation and passion from? And my answer really would be, Dr. Richards, I look at my 3 boys and where they are, how they show up, how I want the world to look for them so that they feel safe, they feel loved, they feel happy, they feel, that there's equity. And so for me, I really do the work that I do, the DEI work that I've done, this relationship work that I'm doing. It is all centered around creating healthy communities so that my children, I feel safe that they can live and breathe and thrive and have all of the opportunities that they work really hard for and they deserve without the red tape and the other things that come along with them. If I could create a more equitable space for my children, my 3 boys, that's the work that I'm doing. I'm really trying to create healthy communities, change mindsets so that my children and your grandchildren can benefit from the world that Dr. Martin Luther King wanted for us.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts. And what I'm going to do is ask you a few questions. I want you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the rapid round of fun?
Yes, I'm ready.
What is your favorite comfort food?
Oh, lobster.
The last movie you saw?
Oh my God, what was the last movie? The Color Purple.
You relax doing what?
I relax by taking a hot bath, and with candles.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Beyonce.
Your favorite dance song?
Earth, Wind, and Fire, September, because I'm a September baby.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
A protein, probably eggs.
Your ideal car?
I'm not a big car girl, but I don't know what my ideal car is. Pass.
Hit the couch or work out?
Hit the couch.
Bonika Wilson, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you, to do business with you. Leave all your social media handles and tell them where they can pick up your book.
Absolutely. So the best way to connect with me is on Instagram at The Business with B, or you can check me out on my website, bonikawilson.com, Bonika Wilson.com. And our company website is WCMfirm.com. And thank you so much for having me. I have enjoyed being with you today.
That's a wrap, and it's been fun. We got to run. Take care.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.